On This Week in Sales, we're going to be taking a look at shaming people, not just any people, shaming salespeople on LinkedIn, what high growth companies do different to negative growth companies, and B2B marketplaces, and a whole ton more. My name is Will Barron, and one half of this show, Victor Antonio, sales legend, absolute sales legend, joins me by the power of Skype. Victor, how's it going, sir?
It is going good. I'm a little tired, Will. I don't know about you, but man, my sleep patterns are off, and I don't know why.
Is it too much partying? Is that what it is?
I love to think so. I thought it was caffeine, so I kind of pulled back on the caffeine. I thought it might be the imbibing in the evening, a little beer, a little wine, so I pulled back on that. Man, I just can't figure it out. So I'm on a 5 to 6 hour. I guess that's good enough, right? 5 to 6 hours sleep. Do you think that's good enough?
No, that's terrible. That is literally terrible. Most people need within 6 to at least 6, if not 8 hours to function appropriately. I know Elon Musk, for example, sleeps 8 to 9 hours a day. So if he can physically do that and he sees the benefits in it, then we should probably do the same as well, right?
Wow. Okay, I got to up my sleep game then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will, Elon Musk. Appreciate that. Because if Elon Musk is doing it, I guess I have to do it, right? I mean, why wouldn't I listen to Elon Musk, the biggest brain in the universe?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe just to juxtapose that slightly, maybe he's doing more than what we are, so maybe he needs more sleep as well. I'm sure as hard as we work, Victor, I'm sure we're not running like 5 multi-billion-dollar companies and trying to replicate the human race and get them on Mars.
Yeah, and drilling tunnels. He's doing a project now, I think. Is it in California? Not California. Recently, it was like Florida. He wants to put a tunnel in Florida for electric cars. Latest project. By the way, but here's the thing. He said he could do it. I remember the number. He said he could do it for like $30 million. And everybody's like, what? $30 million? How is that possible? Well, apparently Elon thinks it's possible.
For sure. Well, the Boring company, which is doing that project, and they want to do a tunnel in LA as well to cut some of the traffic off there, was a joke. It started off as a joke, and he just had so much engineering knowledge and expertise within all these companies that they were like, okay, we'll spin this off and we'll give it a go. So that's the kind of level he's playing at.
Well, the man's building tunnels, man. So, he's sending people to Mars and building tunnels, man. From the ground to space, the guy's got it covered, man. So that's cool.
He's killing it. Cool. All right, let's jump into some sales news. That's what everyone listening and watching is here for. So, first article here from globalnewswire.com. 87% of high-growth sales organizations take a value-based approach to sales, according to new research. Now, just to give you some numbers here, Victor, this is research done by ValueSelling Associates. 87% of high-growth companies take a value-based approach. 45% of negative growth companies take a value-based approach. Is sales success as simple as just taking a value-based approach to selling? Could we just wrap up the whole show, all our content, and just go down the value-adding route?
When I first read this, that you posted here, I go, what? Like, duh, why not sell value, right? Like, who doesn't sell value? But then when I looked at the details of the report, I said, okay, I see where these guys are going. So I'll let you finish up the second part. But yeah, value-based is obvious.
Sure. And there's loads of data points in this article, which you can find over at This Week in Sales in the full show notes. Another point I pulled out from here, again, 1 point from about 15, was that almost half, 47% of high growth companies focus on upskilling their salespeople in presenting in virtual settings, whilst only 13% of negative growth companies do. And my conclusion from a lot of this data that they've pulled out here is that high growth companies care about the employees, they're training them, they're giving them the tools to succeed, and that's what's making them a high growth company. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
Yeah. When I read the data, I go, okay, so essentially, positive-minded companies basically see the value in training. Negative-minded companies don't. That's really the whole article. But some of the data points were, rather interesting. But a lot of it, I was like, yeah, duh. You know what I mean? Okay, that's obvious. So I guess it's the whole thing. If you invest and you believe in training, as you say, upskilling, whether it's virtual or not virtual, you're going to have a positive mindset towards training. If not, your sales are going to suffer. So I get it. I'm with these guys. I'm with BSA on this one.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, Victor, because I've just interviewed Aaron Ross of Predictable Revenue fame, and the conversation came down to this point of using the scientific method, so having a hypothesis and then A/B testing whether it's right, and keep going down that pathway until you find the truth, what's real. And then the other part of the conversation was, we just need to simplify. We need to suss out what works, what doesn't, get rid of everything that doesn't, and focus on the most important things. Keep the main thing is is the rhetoric that I always say to myself. Do we overcomplicate a lot of this, Victor? Should we just be keeping the main thing, and then testing our assumptions?
The main thing. I love that phrase. The main thing is the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing. It just sounds like one of those Dr. Seuss riddles. Keep the main thing the main thing. That's what you do. First of all, the A/B testing, that's an obvious one there that you're going to have to try to figure it out. But I do think when you're talking about, and I love when you always say suss out, that we have to suss out what we don't do and do not need. Because I think, and we should find some numbers on this, well, maybe for the next podcast, that, when we look at technology stacks, are we just relying too much on technology and overcomplicating the process? Mm-hmm. In other words, sales at its very essence is still two people essentially talking, seeing if there is a value exchange, and if there is, let's do this. But sometimes I think we get layered with technology that we're moving farther away from people than closer.
Sure, and Aaron's spin on this, I don't want to give away the whole episode. You can find it over at salesman.org and all the content. But a lot of what Aaron Ross of Predictable Revenue preaches is that when you sub-segment out the sales roles, then you've got more opportunity. You're not overwhelmed by the burden of technology and automation because you're only using one element of the sales stack. So things become more streamlined and more humanized when you do split out the roles like that, as opposed to me and my background in medical device selling, where I had to prospect, close deals, account manage, customer success, expand accounts, all this stuff. If I was doing this now, I'd probably have about 15 different tools that I'd have to use just to stay on top of all the data information coming in and to analyze some of it. And so that might be overwhelming. So perhaps, is it fair to say maybe some of the solution, if we are overwhelmed by tech stack and we want to simplify things, is just to sub-segment out some of the sales process?
You bring up a very good point, is that if you were to do a before and after comparison of, I don't want to say pre-technology because we've always had technology in the last 10 to 20 years, but let's say the last 10 to 20 years, 10 years, if you look at the technology stack 10 years ago versus the technology stack today, and then lay out the sales process and see where you would need all these different products, it would be interesting to compare the difference and the effectivity of both before and after. You know what? Are more tools really making us more efficient? I like what Aaron's doing. He's talking about, let's just partition out what's in that sales process, and then whatever tools are needed for that particular role, that's the only technology you'll use. But then the other extreme of that is that maybe you're too focused. See, there's always that balance, right? Either you're too narrow or you're too wide. So the debate continues.
Yeah, and we'll come back to this towards the end of the show when we go into the audience questions, when we're going to touch on what we touched on last week, which is pre-sales and pre-sales engineering. What have we got up next, Victor?
SurveyMonkey announces availability of GetFeedback's integration with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. I thought this was interesting because I'm always about how are we yanking in data into the machine being the CRM, right? That whole, the Death Star. So SurveyMonkey, a leader in agile software solutions for customer experience, market research, and survey feedback today, announced the general availability of a new integration connecting GetFeedback, SurveyMonkey's multi-channel agile CX customer experience with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So that's the name of their product, GetFeedback. GetFeedback is a powerful, again, agile. Why do they overuse the word agile? You ever read some of these press releases like, what does it mean? Can you just speak English, please? An easy-to-use CX solution that companies like Crocs, Decker, and all these wonderful companies use to capture feedback across all channels, analyze its trends, and act on it quickly. Again, I wanted to highlight this, Will, because as I already mentioned, I love the fact that these companies are trying to figure out all these different, I'll say, data sources that they can pull information in, let the machine learning do its thing to find the insights they need. So I think this is another interesting integration piece into the CM integration story.
Well, I'm going to do, Victor, what I both intentionally and unintentionally do every single week, and just try and undermine every post that you make and everything I have to say on this show. Let me ask you this question, and maybe you're going to undermine yourself here. How often do you reply to emails that ask for feedback from brands that are automated?
Almost never, Will. Almost never. The thing is, and it's funny because they try to frame it in so many different ways, but in my mind, I'm going, you want me to take my time to do this survey. And I think because we've been fooled in the past. I think we've been conditioned to hate surveys because, rewind it. Let's go back. Once upon a time when these surveys came out, you'd like, let me give them some feedback so they can improve their process. But then you get into their survey, you get into their survey, and all of a sudden, one question turns into like a string of 20 questions. And now you've gone down that rabbit hole. I think they should do what they do with the bathrooms at the airport here in the U.S. You know, when you come out of the bathroom, you got a happy face, you got a sad face. Are you happy with the cleanliness? Are you unhappy? Bam, bam. I think it should be that simple.
That makes sense for it to be at least the first step, and then you send someone the survey after the fact. We get down the psychology of the yes ladder then of once someone's made one move, perhaps they're more likely to make another one. But that's very smart. I don't know what we'd call this new business, the 87th This Week in Sales spin-off business that we're going to create on the back of that, Victor. But yesno.com would be a great domain for a surveys tool that starts kind of the funnel like that.
Because, you know, the thing is, because then you would have if it's yes, then maybe you'll send a string of emails that would probably appeal to that yes person. If it's no, well, some people like to gripe. Please tell us your gripe and I'll give you a gift card. I don't know. But you're right. But by the way, SurveyMonkey is growing. And you don't build out an integration platform like this unless it's growing. I think what they're using it for is maybe when they get feedback from their customers, their existing customer base. So if I am a subscriber to the salesman.podcast, right, and I really love the show, and then you send me a survey, I think I would give you feedback as a client. I think I would.
Sure. Okay. Have you ever, it's going to seem off topic, but I'll drag it back in a second. Have you ever read Amazon's letters to shareholders, what Jeff Bezos writes every year, or used to write, I guess?
I have not.
Okay, so for anyone who's listening who, whether you're in sales, leadership management, especially if you are in the executive, the C-suite, they are must-reads. They're incredible. Like written for individuals and humans as opposed to written for shareholders, but they're written in a way that even I can understand and comprehend, right? They're not written in a complicated format for finance teams to decipher and debate over kind of stock prices. They're really good, and you can look, they're all public online, and you can look back to 20 years ago when Jeff was like, maybe we should sell stuff other than books. I think there's a marketplace for that. You can see the company growing. Well, a recurring theme within the letters to shareholders is metrics that Amazon is based upon. And one of the things that they are super hot on, which is the almost opposite of what we're describing here with feedback, is one of the metrics that they measure every single day, month on month, year on year, is per order. How many tickets do we get? How much feedback do we get per order? And they see that every time there's a ticket raised, a question asked, a comment given, an FAQ opened, they've not done a good job. They want people to log in, buy, and check out without any engagement, any interaction whatsoever. And they see that as success. So when we're asking for feedback, we're perhaps even going about all of this the wrong way, and we shouldn't have to. I know we need to gather feedback somehow. But a lot of the time, I feel like if you're having to ask for feedback, there's probably an issue and you need to resolve the issue as opposed to kind of suss out the wider picture.
I think that's a good point. You know, you're as I'm listening to you, you reminded me of that book, which I think it's one of those undervalued books. It's called the Effortless Experience. It was written by the guys who wrote like the Challenger sale. I think it was Matt Dixon and I forgot the other guy's name. He's going to yell at me. Brent Adamson maybe, and the guy named Tolman. But in there, they came up with their own metric. Instead of using the NPS or the CSAT, customer satisfaction score, they basically highlighted something called the customer effort score. And the lower the customer effort score is, the better, which is to your point, that if somebody has to ask a question or, in your case, generate a ticket, then you failed or you're failing the process. So great point.
Yeah, and I think we'll see this. I don't know if you've seen this. Clearly, you've got more experience over a longer period of time than me in this sales training industry, and everything goes on.
I like the way you always slide in my age and how old I am.
But I did it positively.
I love the way you do that.
But this is usually I'm taking the piss out of you. But this was a positive reference to it, Victor. Because I've seen this over the past few years, so I'm intrigued to whether you've seen this develop as well. There seems to be a lot more of a focus on customer success. It didn't exist. It used to be customer service a few years ago, right? It seems to be a lot more of a focus on customer success, and I'm assuming this is because everyone is on a SaaS model or a pay monthly model as opposed to one-off capital payment. So we need to, as organizations, we need to keep these buyers on board for longer periods of time to recoup perhaps the costs of acquisition upfront. So do you see customer success becoming more and more important? And have you seen that in your own career develop from nothing into something, into perhaps something even more important than sales over the longer term?
I think, when you compare, because I'm as old as a dinosaur, according to you. So back then you did have the tools, right? You did have the tools. I think we have more tools to actually engage customers automatically. The bots, the chat bots, the virtual assistants and all that. But I really think that this move towards the customer journey and the buyer experience, the real focus on that, everything from, the font on the screen to the color and where you position the image, all that has become more of a science, where before it was more of an art and we were just guessing. So I think that's one of the biggest transitions.
For sure. I know with our own product over at salesman.org, it seems like a dead easy change this, right? This has taken weeks of messing around. But now when you log in, it doesn't just tell you, hi, Will, congratulations, you've done this amount of work and training this week. It now will say it's been 7 days and you've not logged in. Perhaps you could check out some of these articles, jump in the community and do X, Y, Z. Then after 30 days, it does something else. And after 60 days, basically we try and reignite your passion for the training and bring you back into the training product. Now, that is 100% customer journey. We don't do any, over at Salesman.org, we don't do any kind of monthly subscriptions or anything like that. Everyone pays up front for the product itself. So there's no real value other than customer experience. But what I believe is, and I think you would agree with this, customer experience now will lead to more referrals and better business further down the line. So that's why I'm personally doubling down on all of this. It's one thing to sell someone. It's one thing to have someone half bought in and there's a little bit of buyer's remorse and they're like, well, I've committed me cash now. I'll do the training. It's another thing entirely to have someone go, okay, I spent my money, let's jump into it, and then come out the other end of it even more excited and wanting to refer their friends. And what we're aiming for, to be very blunt, is individuals come in and then they upsell it internally to their own organization and get the sales managers involved. So I'm bought into all this, and I'm sure you are as well. I'm on the right tracks with some of this, aren't I, Victor?
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned it quickly, but it's really important that when we compare back then to today people feel more opinionated and they have the tools to be opinionated. So they can leave you that negative review. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also generated this interest on the corporate side, on the company side, to make sure that we don't get any negative reviews. So, this whole cancel culture, has really taken hold. This, whether it's social justice warriors, let's call it the social justice online, right? Like, oh my God, you made me click 3 times. I'm canceling you. So I think there's this fear of that. So I think companies are doing all they can to really make sure that the customer experience / journey is as smooth as it can be. And I think that's smart, though. I think it's a win-win in the end.
Yeah, it is win-win. Maybe it's more development costs up front and more work, but a better customer experience has got to be better over the long run. And talking about tools, we're on to the next one here. This title of the article from payments.com, spelled incorrectly, PYMNTS.com. The title of the article, I'm going to say it, but it's got nothing to do with the point I want to make. B2B fashion marketplace taps new sales with virtual trade shows. Well, this article is diving into B2B marketplaces. Now, it says they're nothing new. In fact, it's an idea that has its roots in the late 1990s and early 2000s when Ariba and Commerce One and many others took a shot at organizing buyers and suppliers online for the purpose of discovering each other and doing business. One study found that 75% of B2B buyers and sellers now want to make purchases or interact with business partners online. We've covered that study in the past. What I want to dive into that's half included in this article here, Victor, is there an opportunity for an Amazon of B2B products and services? It's becoming so noisy to find services, sales outbound. It's getting so much harder. We're going to dive into some kind of comments and cancel culture on some outbound on LinkedIn later on in the show. But with it becoming such a noisy environment, is the value, or is the increasingly the potential of value of having one site where you go, everything's fairly compared, and you can buy through that website, whether it's sales tools, marketing tools, SaaS products, whatever it is the value in kind of someone building the Amazon of B2B products and services?
But that's almost like, one could argue that's almost like Alibaba. Mm-hmm. Even though Alibaba has everything, but you can go buy a earth mover for $1 million on Alibaba. So maybe that's kind of what they're aiming for. So, there's always that opportunity. What I like about this article you found here is that, the concept really had its roots in the 1990s and 2000s, as you said. Kind of leads to the point we were talking about earlier, that back then, maybe we didn't have the tools. Plus, maybe the mindset wasn't there. Fast forward, this pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. So now virtual seems acceptable. The tools are there. The bandwidth is there sometimes as far as connections. But I mean, we're more open to it now. So in the study, that's, what is it, 75%?
Yep.
Now want to make a purchase. I mean, I think that's a big number. Will, that's a big number.
I'm just on the Alibaba.com website. And one of the top links at the top of the page, clearly they're pushing traffic to this because Alibaba gets millions of page views every day, right? Is online trade shows. Now, I'm on the online trade shows page. It says there's 32 product categories. There's 37,000 participating suppliers. There is basically 1.4 million products been launched on the Alibaba, online trade show. And I assume it's almost like a Kickstarter campaign, apart from the products are not in development, they actually exist. And you can launch them on there. You can go and interact with the suppliers. Perhaps you're shopping for, I don't know, office furniture, whatever it is. That's a B2B sale, right? You're searching for office furniture. So I assume if I type in, I'll do it in real time now, office furniture, it'll come up with, comes up with a whole list of suppliers. This is kind of what I was alluded to. But maybe my spin was on more software and tools as opposed to physical products. Alibaba's just physical products. And there's countless suppliers that can give us office furniture at different price points. Which is interesting here as well, Alibaba has a verified element to it as well, much like eBay does. And there's even a button to chat now. I'm going to click chat now and see what happens. Or it's telling me to sign in. So I assume that even the sales conversation then, as an inbound lead, is being facilitated on Alibaba as well. So I'll re-ask the question, I guess. Can we do Alibaba for other B2B products? Is that the smart way to go about this?
Oh, yeah. We got to find some big suppliers like, let me see, Dear HubSpot, Dear Salesforce, Dear Course AI, some big companies to build out some massive system like that. I think Salesforce would be in a position to build out something like that, I think. What do you think? Should we push that on Salesforce to do it?
Well, Salesforce has an app marketplace, right? Other companies that have these APIs and integrations have app marketplace as well. Obviously, Salesforce should be the giant it is, as the biggest and leading one. But maybe we don't want Salesforce or a specific supplier to be creating this. And what I'm thinking here is, if we wanted to do a marketplace for CRM organizations, why can't it just be a website that has so much content on CRM, has CRM specific experts creating podcast content, video content, so that if you want to do anything to do with CRM, you go to this one specific place and they'll give you unbiased vendor information, and they will put you in front of the right people at the right organizations. They can even perhaps facilitate a bidding or tender process, and they take a cut of the end sale from the supplier side as opposed to taking a buyer fee up front. I feel like something like that could be incredibly valuable, especially for small, medium organizations. Obviously, large enterprise, they have their own procurement teams that can do a lot of this for them. But for small, medium organizations, again, obviously it's not going to be completely unbiased, but as unbiased as we can possibly be, a site like that, a facility, a program like that could be incredibly valuable to them. And of course, if you're delivering leads and super hot inbound prospects to all these companies, they're going to be on board as well.
Well, I like the idea. I mean, it's a lot of content curation and a lot of, revising of information because of all the new developments every week, so forth and so on. So I know there's a website out there. I don't remember the name, but it's a website dedicated to reviewing CRMs and doing these comparative analysis. But I forgot the name of it. But it's out there, and the opportunity is there.
Well, I googled CRM reviews. Top search result in Google is pcmag.com, so clearly not relevant whatsoever. G2.com, somewhat relevant, although I'm skeptical of how biased some of these review sites are. Softwareadvice.com, again, not very specific. TechRadar.com, not specific at all. There doesn't seem to be. TrustRadius.com, again, somewhat skeptical. Fool.com, which is a finance website. Business.com. These are all, I'd have to go for each one. It would be unfair to say. What I was about to say is these are clickbaity articles to just drive clicks, as opposed to full-on reviews of in-depth reviews and recommendations on products and services. But it seems like there's a market out there. It's another spin-off business for us, Victor.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, and I remember seeing it. I know it has CRM in the domain name, but I can't remember what it does. I can't see it either. But anyway, a lot of opportunities. You know what? That's why people should listen to this show more often. They're going to get great ideas and launch mega companies. They should give us a slice of the pie after they get big. That says, I just keep reminding them of that, Will, to make sure that if our conversation generated was a catalyst for any idea, we should be allowed at least, I'm going to be generous here and say, we should be allowed each 1% of that company's value.
You take 1%, I'll take 15%, and everyone is happy. And with that, Victor, tell us, we've got another story here on CRM.
Let me see. Wait, I got to pull off. You got me distracted here. So anyway, I thought this was interesting because we talked about boutique CRMs, and so this time I found we were talking about real estate CRMs last week. This week I found another one. It says Hotel CRM Software Market Summary, Trends, Sizing Analysis, and Forecast to 2025. The study on Hotel CRM Software Market presents a comprehensive analysis of key growth in the market, verticals, and so forth. What do you think, Will? I mean, I think this is really interesting that there are all these little boutique markets. And that's all the point I wanted to make with this little article was that there's all these little markets. Like there might be one on contractors. I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting topic.
I like it.
I
like it, Victor.
Yeah,
I feel like this feeds back into what we were just talking about of where the heck do you find all these boutique markets? It seems like the eBay, the Amazon, the Alibaba of CRM. I know we keep plowing onto CRM. Clearly, most of us are using one. That's why I like to use that example with these for context for our audience. But there could be many other different marketplaces as well. I honestly feel like this feeds back into the point that I was making previous of there's a real opportunity here because I would never.
That's a really good point.
Would I search for hotel CRM? I don't know what the search term would be. It'd be best. All right, I'm going to search it right now. Best CRM for hotels. CRM.org came up there. So maybe that's the website that we're kind of
yeah.
CRM.org is an online resource for business growth. So kind of maybe.
And I'm just Googling here, CRMs for contractors, because I've never done that. And sure enough, they even have construction CRM software packages. So, again, a lot of niche markets. Pipedrive is trying to get some of that CRM market for construction by tailoring it. So, okay, Pipedrive is going in there. Pipedrive's going in. They're trying to find these little boutique niches to go after. I think it's fascinating. But I still say that the best way of doing it is to, like, if you look at, and we'll just use Salesforce as because it's the largest, a good placeholder. Why aren't they? And they could be. Maybe we're just ignorant of the fact that why aren't they building apps specifically for all these boutique markets that just bolt into to Salesforce?
I just don't think it's. I think going back to what I said before, keep the main thing the main thing. That's my motto of all this. The main thing for Salesforce is large enterprise organizations. And they've got the App Store. Maybe there is bolt-ons for other functionality that we're talking about here within the Salesforce app market.
Well, I think the marketing team over at Salesforce is just lacking, man. They're just like not looking at the big picture. They really don't see that all these little small boutiques are going to be bigger boutiques, and it's a large revenue stream. We're trying to help them here, Will. Salesforce, dear Mark Benioff.
I think Salesforce are going to be just fine, and the more likely they go after Ford than. I suppose hotels are large organizations, right? But I still would rather have Ford and Mercedes as a customer within a large enterprise CRM as opposed to go after. I suppose Marriott. They've got lots of individuals working there, right? That would be logging in and out.
The thing is, look, I'm trying to democratize. I like the way you use that word. I like to democratize the power of the CRM for all the small market niches because I'm always looking out for the little guy.
Have you ever come across this then? I'm going to Google it now. Again, there's a lot of Googling on this show. We'll wrap up the Googling in a second. But are there no open source CRMs that are applicable for, I guess, small, medium organizations? Because that seems like the solution that you're talking about to democratize this. Open source technology is the answer. And over the next 20 years, there'll be so much open source of everything that we won't have to necessarily rely on large organizations. And large organizations will be producing open source software themselves. And the value that they'll be adding to it will be, it's hosted on our servers, it's reliable, you're using our safe and secure login as opposed to hosting it yourself and trying to faff around with all of that. But I feel like the software side of things will become open source. So I'll just Google open source CRM because that's probably the answer that I know as you described it, that's what I'd be looking for.
I'm just thinking they're missing out. There's got to be. I got to believe we're going to have to dig into this before the next show. I'm going to dig into the, does somebody like Salesforce, Pipedrive, some of these other CRM companies, Microsoft Dynamics, do they have, APIs that are specific to an industry?
I'm going to make a note here.
They are.
I'm just going to ask.
I got to believe they do.
I'll ask Salesforce and HubSpot. That's the easiest answer. Salesforce, HubSpot.
Ask them.
Care about boutique.
Yeah.
There we go. Real time scribbling stuff down in the show notes. So let's move on now.
There you go.
Victor, to
your turn.
Showpad partners with Threekit to improve buyer experience through enhanced 3D visualization and augmented reality. This is over at
By the way, I can tell you get excited about this subject because your voice goes up a couple of notches.
This is over at martechseries.com. And I do get excited because this has got to be the future of B2B sales. And my background is physical products. And it's difficult for me to picture how physical products, so a surgeon's got to feel in their hands, they've got to use it on a patient, translates into this clearly, especially when you're dealing with surgeons in hospitals. You can't have salespeople going back and forth and just traipsing COVID everywhere, or potentially traipsing COVID everywhere. So this is like close to my heart because this is the world that I would, if I was still working in a B2B sales job as an individual contributor, this is what I'd be physically doing. So Showpad and Threekit have partnered to bring enhanced 3D visualization and augmented reality to Showpad's platform. So I've been through the Threekit website, and it is basically I assume it's like really photorealistic 3D renders of different products. On the homepage, it's more like couches or wedding rings or whatever it is. And you can one-click change colors, change size, change whatever the variables are. And then you can picture it in your own house, business, office, whatever it is. And clearly, this is going to become more and more important. Is there anything? Am I overemphasizing this? I guess that's the better question. Or am I?
No,
do you feel like I'm on the right track?
No, I think you're on the right track. I mean, we're still some time away from it. Look, ever since I saw, have you ever seen the Tupac Shakur hologram with Snoop Dogg at Coachella? Ever since I saw that, I'm going, okay, there's the future. Star Wars people had it right. The little holograms that pop up. Mm-hmm. And ever since I saw that, I said, this is just a matter of time. And so think about this for a second. Well, think about this for a second. That people will no longer die, so to speak. even if they leave this physical world, the fact that we'll be able to, I was talking to Michael Solomon, who we'll get to later, about the movie Polar Express with Tom Hanks.
Yep.
That people were repulsed because how realistic it looked to Tom Hanks. There was like this repulsion, like, oh, that's kind of scary because it was too much like Tom Hanks. And so I think we're going to get used to this. But imagine a world. It's like the guy that starts a movie, Imagine a World, right? Where, they're so realistic that tomorrow you could take your favorite. Who's your favorite, like, I don't know, your musician, guitar player, drummer? Who's your favorite?
It's one of those questions, Victor. I really like the Arctic Monkeys. They're one of my favorite bands. I've got an affiliation with them.
All right. Imagine them passing away, unfortunately, right? But still being able to bring them back in such 3D live scenarios and be able to script, you want them to play a specific song, they'll be able to play a specific song. I mean, this is where it's going to go to eventually. Will we see it? Well, I don't know. But I think before we leave this planet, we might see something close to it.
We're going to see it in the next 5 years. There will be either a product that you have on your desk that creates some kind of 3D hologram, or I don't know if you've seen it. We've not got it in the notes this week, but there's increasing rumors and supply chain rumors with Apple and their augmented reality glasses. So as soon as Apple release a product like this, it's going to become ubiquitous. Everyone's going to have it. And eventually it'll trickle down. Brands will copy it. Platforms will. Maybe Apple's kind of closed with the Source and how they put things in his own app store, I'm sure. But other brands will come together and create a more open way of doing this. And as soon as you can, clearly it's going to be easier to project an image on your glasses, use head tracking to make it look like they're actually in the room, as opposed to have a physical light source hologram, which is what the Tupac one was, right? That you're all looking at. As soon as you can do that, this becomes real. Now, the only thing is you've not got the haptic element of this, so you can't really touch things, you can't pick things up. But there's plenty of developments going on there as well with gloves that will, a lot of this is going on in the video game industry, computer game industry, where you'll wear either gloves or a pack, a vest that when you get shot, it'll essentially poke you and ping you to make things more real. So all of this is coming. The next 10 years, just even playing computer games is going to be insane. It's going to be a completely different experience to what it has in the past. And games just drive so many billions and billions of dollars of revenue that eventually that'll trickle down into our little bubble of B2B sales as well.
By the way, imagine taking that, because I think that's really the future, is that taking that type of technology and putting it into a sales training platform, a virtual training platform, where you can do role play with actual people virtually and have real responses driven by AI. That's going to be fantastic.
Well, eventually we're just going to be at the Matrix, aren't we? You're just gonna log in, and there's going to be a Keanu Reeves of, oh, I know Kung Fu kind of moment. That's what's coming, Victor.
That's right. That's right. They're going to plug something into your head. All right. Anything else on that one?
No, just one kind of, I'll just quote from the end of the article here. Companies with highly complex, highly customizable, or simply extensive product portfolios to sell, such as those offering in life sciences and medical devices, customer products, home furnishings, and all this kind of stuff. They find it difficult to share, educate, and engage buyers on all possible product options and permutations. That's what we've covered here. Being able to, rather than, if you're buying, again, office furniture, maybe you want to see what it looks like in your office using augmented reality glasses. Or I've got the new iPad. You can hold the iPad up and it uses, I can't remember the sensor now, a LiDAR sensor to kind of map the room, and you can put IKEA furniture and you can see it to scale, to size, without any programming. It just dumps the furniture in your room. You can move it around and you can walk around it and you can see how it looks. Clearly that's the future, as opposed to ordering demos, samples, and getting things delivered, because that's a pain in the ass. We don't want to be doing that.
I love it. And this gets back to the do-it-yourself, right? That's what people want to do. I just want to do this myself before I involve any salesperson. So this, by the way, pushes the salesperson engagement even further down the sales cycle, if you think about it, right? Because you won't need the salesperson maybe till you get to the final point where you got just one or two questions, and then boom, you're ready to pull the trigger. So more technology to kick the salesperson out of the process. Way to go, Will, on that up note. Anyway, let me talk to you about Performio. I love that name. Performio announces a major growth in North America. Performio, the leading enterprise-grade incentive compensation management software solution, has announced 110% growth in North America for FY 2020, the first full year of operations since being acquired in 2019. Performio debuted on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, because everybody wants to be on the Magic Quadrant. Did you know that, Will? In January 2019, Performio now offers multi-object Salesforce Connected that allows Salesforce customers to directly integrate with any object standard custom in Salesforce. Now, I wanted to highlight this, obviously because they're growing. It's a great company. But incentive compensation management, I don't know. I feel like I am alone in the woods, maybe the desert would be more appropriate, yelling to managers, look at your compensation package. Does it make sense? Will it motivate salespeople to do that much better? That's my battle cry. Incentive package. Really think about putting one together that makes sense. And by the way, I'm not just talking about base plus commission package. I'm talking about different incentives to move people in a certain direction, to sell new products, open new territories, so forth and so on.
How much of this, I don't know about this service in particular, but how much of this is automated, in that it looks that you as an individual, that you perform better when there's less base salary but more commission over time, and perhaps it changes some variables? Obviously, I would hope a real person would have to sign off on this. I'm sure HR wouldn't allow this to just go on in the background and be kind of constantly tinkering with things, and that might annoy salespeople as well. But how much of this is automated? How much analytical data can be pulled from this? And especially if you've got a large sales team, say 100, 200 people, can we pull significant information from this that allows us to make the whole team better, as opposed to just guesstimating or using whatever the sales manager 5 years ago, 10 years ago implemented? How much of this is number and data kind of led, Victor?
I still think it is a narrow application as opposed to a broad application. By that I mean, it's like when we talk about AI, right? There's narrow, then there's broad. Narrow, specific. They're moving off spreadsheets, and they're saying, look, get off your spreadsheet. Let's put this actually on a platform. And as you pointed out, as you get salespeople, let's say you got 1,000 people, now you need some type of platform system to actually view the data. I think they're at that stage from what I understood once I went to their website. Do they have like the AI behind it to kind of make suggestions? I didn't see that on the website. This is just the first step in moving off Excel and being able to scale a compensation plan.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And a lot of this, what I just kind of outlined then, could be done from data that's on a dashboard. Because it's something that developers bang on about all the time. It's almost a meme for developers, right? That Excel is not a database. It's not a database. They're not the same things, right? So when we try and manage things that are essentially a database within an Excel document, it just goes astray. And obviously things get lost. People get this, some people don't get that, so it's a mess. So it makes total sense because clearly, of all the sales stack and all the HR stack, financial incentive is pretty important, right? It's got to be on the top of the list because everyone's a stakeholder in that, whether you are in sales, HR, whatever it is, whoever's implementing it, everyone's a stakeholder in getting paid.
Years ago, I read a book called GMP, The Greatest Management Principle. I forgot who the author was, but he basically, the greatest management principle is this: reward the behaviors that you want repeated. Simple. Which is what an incentive package is, right? That's it. I mean, he could have just wrote one page and the book was done. Yeah. But I still remember that book. I still have I think the first edition of the book. And I always thought it was just brilliant because it was so obvious. Reward the behaviors you want repeated and don't reward the ones you don't. And I think putting together an incentive plan. I mean, let's zoom back. You sold for the medical device industry. So let's go through what they go through. A product manager comes out with a new product and they go to Will. Hey, Will, I need you to sell this new product I just came up with because I got to make my P&L work, right, for my little group. And Will's like, I don't know. I mean, I got all these other products to sell, plus I'm killing it with A, B, C. I don't need to sell your E product. And I think that's where incentive plans kick in to motivate people to kind of sell additional products, and that's how you scale business. So I think an incentive plan is really a sales plan disguised as marketing, if it's looked at correctly.
That makes sense. It's funny. I'm smiling as you say that because there'd be, say, 4 or 5 product managers across, for me, in endoscopic sales, right? Camera systems, which is where I made all my money and all commissions. Then there'd be, I don't know, whatever it is, endoscopes, which are useful and valuable to us as well. And then there would be the bottom kind of crappy products that no one ever cared about. And we spend loads of time with these product managers. These product managers, we trying to get these product managers jobs. And it's just this kind of like shuffling about of, we've got all these products. Someone's in the organization's paying for the R&D of them somewhere. We don't want to drop them just yet. They should probably just drop them. And it reminds me of that, I don't know how true this is, but when the anecdote of when Steve Jobs went back to Apple and they had like 300 products and he narrowed it down to like 4, and that's how he turned Apple around. It reminds me of that a little bit, of these obviously legacy products that some product manager that we don't care about is trying to give us like 50 quid Amazon gift cards for selling 20 grand's worth of something. Whereas, we can sell $1 million worth of operating room and surgical endoscopy camera equipment instead and hit our targets with just 2 deals. Or we could sell 50,000 of these units instead. It really reminds me of that.
You reminded me, you're making me laugh because the amount of I'll just say it, arse kissing that was going on. Because, the product managers, product managers will court me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. From a sales standpoint, they're courting me. They said, Victor, let's go out to lunch. Let's go out to dinner. Let me take you here. Let me take you there. Let's go golfing. It was really weird to be sold to by product managers. And that's when I really respected product managers even more, because I realized, they have to put together a marketing plan justified, rally a team around just to get the product developed. Then they have to turn around and sell it. Not to the market. They have to sell it to the salespeople who are the toughest people to sell so they can push their products. Big shout out to product managers who make the world go round.
Yeah, I've talked about it on the show before on this week on the Salesman podcast. If I hadn't have done what I did and left the medical device position because there was no good sales training and I wanted to really get into that marketplace and build the podcast and kind of put our spin on things, then I probably would have gone into product management because it is, it's parallel to sales. The product managers would come out and do a really good job selling on our behalf or go into large accounts and add value and speak to surgeons on a kind of very specific and deep knowledge level, much more than I could with my broader surgical knowledge. It was interesting from that perspective. It was interesting from almost like a entrepreneur perspective of an internal entrepreneur where you've got to perhaps you're not doing the R&D yourself, but you're certainly marketing the R&D. You're getting internal stakeholders involved in it, and you're, again, trying to get your sales team on board with crappy $50 Amazon gift cards that no one wanted. So I would have probably gone into that space if I hadn't have kind of branched out into the content production area. So let me ask you this, Victor, then we'll move on to the next topic. If you weren't doing what you're doing of training, speaking, all that good stuff, what would you have done after kind of leaving corporate America?
If I was, I don't, what would I have done?
If you signed like a non-compete agreement or something like that, where you could not do anything to do with sales for 5 years, where would you have ended up?
I always liked the entertainment business, I think. You asked me about where I would do it. I always loved the entertainment business. I think I would do something like with movies.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I think I would do something like movies. I think I've always loved the entertainment business. I don't know why. But I did want to share something with you, Will. I don't think you know this about me. Here comes the reveal, okay. Right? That I was working for a company at the name, Trident Microsystems was the name, and I was director of sales. And I was wooed by another company, a telecom company, and here's how they wooed me. They said, Victor, this was the sales pitch the guy gave me. His name was Steve. Steve said, Victor, if you ever want to move up in corporate America, really be well-rounded, you need to go into product management. And so I actually left sales and went into product management, where I managed a software team of 9 people. And we developed something called Fiberbase, which was a network management tool for managing fiber optic routing systems. And so it was interesting because when I went into product management, and you have to run your own P&L, I did learn a lot about product development, marketing, so forth, and how to deal with salespeople. And I did that for like 2 years. And then I went back into sales, and I think I had a totally different perspective. So that's why I really respect product managers, because I know how hard it is to do that job. It really is hard. And to deal with salespeople, even worse. So, but anyway, to answer your question, I think it would be the, I guess, entertainment industry, something in the entertainment industry. How about yourself? What would you do?
I would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. But it would be my spin-off show, which I don't think I've ever talked about. You may not know this about me. I do a side project that never gets updated because I never have time at the moment, called Excited Science. The whole premise of the podcast and the videos and the content we produce is to very literally get people excited about science. So the intro to the shows is getting the scientist, whoever's on the show, usually the academics, but who have a flair for entertainment and a passion for it, as opposed to someone who's just sat in a lab all day. I asked them the very basic question of, what about your research would get an average person really excited about science? And then they throw it at us. So,
I love that. I love that concept, man. That's a great concept. Bravo, Will. I like that concept.
So eventually, when all of this wraps up, eventually, Victor, when we sell This Week in Sales and all the assets and the IP for $50 million eventually, mate, that's what I'll be doing full time for the rest of my days. Because
I like that idea. That's a good idea. Yeah. I love the name of it, by the way. Excited Science. That's really good, man. That's really good. On that note, let's get back into what we're talking about. I want to talk to you about a new book that I just read. And I read it, Will. Listen to me. I read it. It's called The New Chameleons, How to Connect with Customers Who Defy Categorization by Michael Solomon. Now, consumers have changed. Here's the description. But the market categories used to identify them have not. Male or female, work or play, online or offline. These and other market categories are no longer relevant. What I loved about the book is that he talks about 7 obsolete dichotomies or models of how we look at people in the market. And this book, I am a fan. I don't know who Ernest Dichter is. Ernest Dichter was into consumer behavior in the 1950s. He was big. There's a guy by the name of Paco Underhill who wrote How They Buy, who was another researcher on consumer behavior. And I think Michael Solomon is, I don't want to say following his footsteps, he's just joining the ranks. And this book really makes you go, okay, I need to kind of look at how I view my categorizations differently. So if you're in sales, I don't know if I'd read this, but if you're a sales leader, I would strongly recommend this book because it really allows you to look at the market spaces differently now. Because everything, even when he talks about the male-female part, section about the dichotomy, we think it's male and female. We obviously know that today because all this gender bending, right? There's new markets being created. That's just one of the dichotomies, the offline versus online. We've talked about this, where you're web rooming or showrooming, right? Web rooming, you see it on the web, then go buy it physically. Showrooming, you see it physically, then you buy it online. So he talks about how all this is blending. It is a great book, backed by research, highly recommended.
I'm not sure if gender bending is the politically correct way to describe that, Victor. But
I don't know. Well, what is it? I
don't know either.
Anybody.
I don't know either.
I keep hearing everything. So there's what is it? Pansexual? Do you know what that is?
No.
I mean, we're going to get in trouble here, but I'm not making. I just don't know what it is anymore. But apparently there's a spectrum now. between male and female, whatever that spectrum is. What the book is highlighting is it is acknowledging that spectrum, and that we should market to that spectrum differently, and that's one of the dichotomies.
That makes sense. Well, so that's one example. What would be another example of a categorization, perhaps for a B2B product or service, Victor, that's seemingly worked at one time and now doesn't work and needs redefining? What would be another example of that?
I think his online, offline was the most broadest of the categories that I related to, because it's how we buy. And whether it's B2B or B2C, but let's stay with B2B. It's how we're buying today, and that is we want to go further into the buying cycle on our own. We want to take the journey on our own. It's how we connect with them, and we know this already. We talk about this all the time. How we connect with them on that journey. And then, again, in the end, they're going to make a decision. So I think that, to me, was the biggest, I guess, stretch. His whole thing is people don't buy vertically. Like you sell here, they buy that. They buy this, and they buy horizontally. And by the way, that gets into upselling and cross-selling and all these other wonderful things. But I think the AI piece is going to help, because if I can pull together, and I think he uses the word constellation of items people bought from different markets, I can then begin to predict whether or not they'll buy my product. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that's the easiest way I can put it.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that I do see, so Amazon must have the best product recommendation machine in the world. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
They never recommend me anything that I would ever buy. It's always trash that they recommend me. So I don't know if I'm buying random things because I buy a lot of stuff from Amazon, right? I barely ever search the internet for most things now. I'll go to Amazon first. And I'm happy to pay a little bit extra because it's free, same or next day delivery and all that good stuff. But their recommendation engine is, for me personally, is rubbish. So it seems like there's still a lot of work to do for this.
I haven't thought about it till you just said that now. I was reflecting. I go, how does it work for me? When it comes to recommending books, because I'm an avid book reader, it does pretty good, actually. But when it comes to the random products I buy, you're right. I don't use it at all because it doesn't predict anything. It just shows me a comparison table at the bottom. Here's the product you're looking at, and here's similar products. That's all it does. So, yeah, now that I think about it, you're absolutely right. Jeez, Jeff Bezos failed on that one, I think. Yo, Jeff, no wonder you left. Give it to the other guy. What's the other guy's name now? The new guy that's taking over.
Who cares? He's not Jeff Bezos. Who cares who he is?
Well, wait a minute. We got to pay a little homage here because we got to find his name, because this guy actually was the guy who pushed AWS, the Amazon, web service, and his AWS was actually generating more revenue than the Amazon business unit itself. So let me see. I'll put new. We got to give this guy a little respect here. New Amazon CEO. Let's see, who is this guy? Let's see. Here he is. No, that's not him. That's still Jeff. By the way, do you know what Jeff Bezos' middle name is?
Preston.
Preston.
Because I've just Googled exactly the same thing as you. And I Googled Amazon new CEO, and it comes up with Jeff Bezos. That's how important Jeff Bezos is versus this schmuck who's took over for Invicta. And we're gonna leave it with that. Amazon.
By the way, Andy Jassy, a 24-year Amazon veteran. Look. Okay, I don't even know Andy, but I'm going to defend Andy because for all I know, he's like the Wozniak to Steve Jobs. Wozniak was the real brain. Steve Jobs was just a creative genius who said, hey, I have an idea. What if we took this, flipped it over, turned it on the side, stuck a plug on the side, and made it work? Okay, you guys figure out how to make that work. For all we know, Andy Jassy is the Wozniak at Amazon.
I'm sure he is. I'm only playing. Also,
let us know what you think. By the way, we haven't even plugged this. Leave us some feedback on thisweekinsales.com. Always looking forward to hearing your feedback. Love the feedback. So anyway, please leave us some.
Any cease or desist letters from Amazon.com, please send to Victor directly. Everything else, thisweekinsales.com. Okay, so have you been following this next story, Victor, about shaming salespeople on LinkedIn?
I have not. It wasn't until I read your notes. I go, what? So I said, okay, I read it. I digested it, but I'll let you take the lead, and then let's talk about it.
Okay, so this was all over my LinkedIn newsfeed. Now, I maybe check LinkedIn kind of once, twice a day just to keep on top of things. I don't use it as an outbound prospecting platform. I'm not messaging people. I don't add people on there, but I'll accept people who add myself and anyone has a message or anything like that. Sometimes our customers will sometimes use LinkedIn to drop me a message rather than email, whatever it is. So I do check it perhaps once or twice a day. Now, Jeff Molander, who is a LinkedIn trainer of, a sales trainer of 20 odd years, a sales communication trainer, made a LinkedIn post and he outed and I'm going to quote it because this is an opinion, right? Shamed a young lad called Hans who sent him some cold prospecting outreach on the platform. Now, the outreach they sent was not particularly customized, wasn't a great sales message. And the criticism came on Jeff that he just copy and pasted or screenshotted the outreach and dumped it on LinkedIn, criticized the lad, and didn't offer him any constructive feedback, didn't blur out his name, didn't blur out his image, which is, we could discuss this in a second of what's right and wrong, and I guess even legally, terms of service-wise, what might be right and wrong here. But the post blew up, not in a good way. It blew up and it got over 350,000 views, 900 plus comments, and then Jeff has deleted it. Jeff Melander has deleted it since. Now, Victor, did Jeff do something inappropriate here? I guess that's the first question. Did he do something inappropriate in that he's a sales and communication trainer and he got some bad sales communication and he threw it on LinkedIn and he got a ton of traffic, a ton of attention, and I don't know if he's doing right or wrong with his own personal brand and his business brand, but he got a ton of attention from it. Did he do something that was inappropriate for the platform?
So did you say he was a sales and communication expert? I just want to make sure I got this right.
Well, let me do my due diligence, and I'll go on his LinkedIn profile because I don't want to do what he's potentially done and muddle the water here, right?
So, it says helping sellers start and advance buyer conversation with community vetting.
So he's a managing partner and sales communication coach. That is the verbatim from the LinkedIn profile.
A communications coach. Okay, so just want to get some data points here. But look at what he said. What is his LinkedIn? It says helping sellers start. So, and then by the way, offering no constructive criticism. I have not read the actual post, so he didn't give any constructive feedback.
I can't find the post because it's been deleted to put in the show notes. So, but yeah, he just rinsed the guy. He just ripped into him.
Well, so first of all, I think one, inappropriate. Do you know what I mean? You could have made that same point by blurring the guy's face out and the name, right? If you really wanted to do that. That's so. You can't call yourself a communication expert or helping buyers get started, sellers get started when you start ripping into somebody. You know what I see today a lot, Will, and I think this is I don't know, maybe it's just our society today, is that young people, and I mean that in a disrespectful way, I mean that in a very positive way, young people who are coming out of college, let's say 25, 26, 27, they're trying to get their legs underneath them. They don't know what they're doing sometimes, right? They're trying to figure it out. And it's our job as leaders, people who've been there, because we've already taken the slings and the arrows. We know what that is to be ridiculed. And it seems like we should take more of the high road here. Do you know what I mean? And actually help them out. I get a lot of, come on, you get a bunch of these spam things from people. And I kind of want to respond sometimes with some snarky. I said, no, I just don't respond, right? And if I do respond, I said, look, this is really not a value statement. Send me something that has value. Maybe I'll read it. But to put them on blast and put them online, to me, it's a jerk move. Total jerk move. I am not saying that Jeff Molander is the jerk, just that move right there was a jerk move.
I think that's fair.
Is that pretty clear?
That's pretty clear. That's fair. And,
not cool.
Part of the backlash on this, Victor, was, and again, this is an opinion as opposed to a fact. It's difficult to be objective about this. It's all subjective. A lot of the backlash was Jeff just not redacting. I think he's done a redaction video now, for what it's worth.
Sure.
How many people have seen it versus the 350,000 people who saw the original post? Who knows? But it was the fact that he didn't back down from this, which is fine. If he believed he was right, fine.
He didn't show remorse.
No.
And his ego was getting the best of him.
Yep.
And he's like, I refuse to be bullied online, is probably what he's thinking. My opinion is my opinion. Here's who I am. I mean, he went through all that, and we all go through all that. So I'm not criticizing Jeff because I've done that in the past, and I know you've done it in the past, and everybody listening to this has probably done something where you make a statement, you put it out there, and you just don't want to back down because you're like, well, that's my opinion. That's how I feel. This is my channel, my account. Why can't I say that? And you feel all offended. Until you realize that it's just not cool.
Until you realize you're wrong and you look like a fool. And just to double down on this, Jeff commented on one of my posts.
Here we go. Jeff. Here we go.
So I posted a LinkedIn guide.
I got your back, Will. Will, I got your back, Will. I got your back. I just want you to know.
I posted a LinkedIn guide from a friend, Sam Dunning, who created this LinkedIn guide. It's only a $5. It's basically a tiny book. And it's Sam's done really well on LinkedIn. So I wanted to share it. I wanted to kind of pay it forward with him, and because I think he's doing good work. So then Jeff commented, and hopefully we can have this on the screen as I say it. He commented, absolutely, I want to build a professional brand and crush it. Then he tagged in Mark Praley and says, let's, ? So I was like, this is bloody sarcastic because you're supposed to be an expert in this. Then the comment from Mark, this is the one. This is the one, Victor, that got my back up. Mark says,
okay,
maybe Sam can help us get out of the hole, Jeff. I assume he's referring to the fact that Jeff had so much negative feedback on this original post.
Right.
Mark continues,
right.
You've got your memes, platitudes, positively placards, an empathy wagon fueled up and ready to go. I think he's undermining the power of memes on social media here. It's probably one of the best ways of communicating and getting attention, which just shows how redundant Mark Pilley's opinion is on this. That so many, even Elon Musk was making comments about memes and the effectiveness of them not too long ago. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was saying how effective they are at communicating complex things in a picture and a few lines of text. So when I'm afraid, Jeff, when you and your crony Pele come and commenting on my posts, that's it. The game's up now, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting how the amount of testosterone that kicks in, in some of these conversations. It's just I used to participate. I don't any longer. I just don't want to have any of these discussions with people. I'm going to go back to the point, dear Jeff Molander. Not a cool move, man. Just not a cool move. Now, if you wanted attention, you got it. If you want some notoriety, I use that word very specifically. If you wanted notoriety, you got it. If this benefits you in some way, great. But at the same time, just remember that kid you made, and I don't know if he's a kid or a guy, that guy you made fun of had to put up with all that crap. And that right there is not good karma, man. That's just horrible karma. That's not cool.
No.
Not cool at all.
Do you know that maybe secretly we're aligned on this? I would love to start getting into some online arguments, Victor. I would love if LinkedIn turned into the drama fest that what YouTube is of doing music videos, just slamming each other, going back and forth and driving tons of clicks and attention. If I could do a music video accusing you of something inappropriate, I would definitely do it for the clicks and the views. I would love that. I would literally, genuinely, as long as it was all done lightheartedly, because I'm sure all these arguments on YouTube are done with the knowledge that we're driving each other's attention and traffic up. I would really enjoy that, but it's not appropriate for a business platform.
No, look, there's so many cynical sites, so many cynical platforms out there. You want to make some cynical comments, go to Instagram, make your videos, Twitter, Facebook. I don't know. Am I a LinkedIn snob that I'm like, I don't want to see anything about politics, I don't want to see anybody petting puppies. Okay, I don't want to see that stuff. It's a business platform. Let's keep it business. Let's all try to crowdsource each other by saying let's keep it above the fray, and let's maintain a certain standard. That's my attitude towards LinkedIn. I want it to be a home for a business intelligence. Emphasis on the word intelligence, by the way.
I think there's one flaw. I think there's one flaw here, Victor.
Yeah, the human flaw.
Yeah, I was going to say, intelligence. This is massively variable across the members of LinkedIn. I think this is the problem to the utopia that you're pitching here. Will.
Let me dream. Well, I want my Shangri-La, my utopia. I want that. But anyway, I'm hoping that LinkedIn remains one of these places where, some of the nonsense is muted. I love when people criticize other people on LinkedIn because it's almost like it's because I don't see it as bullying. I don't see it as, people just trying to, mute people. I think it's people saying, hey, come on, stay in the lane. It's a business lane, stay in the lane. But I think, shaming somebody like sure. Jeff did is not cool. And I think we've shamed Jeff enough on this show.
I think
Jeff,
that is fair.
You're probably a cool dude, man, but jerk move. Anyway, on that, here's a story that really touched my heart, Will. Just emotionally just impacted me. Boomers left behind by jobs recovery. Article by Andrew Murfett over at LinkedIn News. A significant shift is quietly taking place. Don't you love, see that right there, that opening line? a significant shift is quietly taking place. In the U.S. labor market, according to Bloomberg, as a wave of people 55 and older flee. I don't like the word flee the labor force. I think they're basically being booted out of the labor force. Scores of disgruntled. Why do they have to be? Okay, Will, I got a problem here. First of all, look how they use the word like flee. That's running, right? Like running, like scattering, right? Then he goes, scores of disgruntled, right? Why disgruntled? Boomer workers have given up looking for work since the pandemic began, with the participation rate of workers over 55 slumping to 2% since last March, equating to the loss of 2 million workers from the labor force, which is really not that much. Some 2.7 million jobs for workers under the age of 55 have been created since August, with just 20,000 jobs created for workers over 55 in the same period. To me, I read this article and I go, this is one of those, I think Andrew Murphet, if I can just kind of call him out a little bit, I don't think this one's so mischaracterized. I think the real message, I wish he would have gone with, let's talk about how boomers are adjusting to this new market shift. Some people are going to drop out of the market. Some people are going to upskill. Let's talk about that. How did you read this one?
So these numbers are difficult, right? The participation rate of workers over 55 slumping by 2% since last March. Well, if you look at 16 to 21-year-olds, I'm pretty sure, because all their jobs have just disappeared. If you're in an entry-level role, they've just all disappeared because offices are closed, McDonald's is closed. All these jobs that a 16-year-old kid would do no longer exist, may never come back in a lot of cases. So that slumping rate is probably 50%, 80%. So
right.
That's that 2% of over 55s is disingenuous in the way it's been put in here without the context of other kind of age groups. But maybe some of it's true of if you're 55, you've got a bit of cash in the bank, you want to retire early, sod it. I would if I could. I'd be out of the market. And maybe you look to come back in a few, 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe right now, Victor, is a great time to have somewhat of a sabbatical of, all right, sod all this. Everything's a mess. I'm just going to take 2 years off. I've got the savings. I'll come back, see what we're doing, rock and rolling in a couple of years from now. Maybe there's an element of that to some of this as well. But
I like that. I actually like that better. Like sitting out instead of fleeing the labor force. Maybe I'm just sitting out. I got money. I got bank. It just seemed like this article was just trying to generate drama. And so I love the point. I wish they would have talked more about what they're doing. Are they sitting out or are they upscaling? What's the dynamic there? As opposed to just trying to stir the pot and like, oh my God, here it goes. You're like, no, numbers aren't that bad. Anyway, that's my gripe for the weekend. I thought I'd throw that in there.
Well, we've got to somehow pull this back to a positive note towards the end of the show, Victor. So we kind of bashed these guys last week. I appreciate Vivun, V-I-V-U-N, for reaching out on a post of yours, Victor. And they say, Victor Antonio, thanks for talking about our funding news. So we were talking about them last week and we dove into this conversation about what the heck pre-sales engineering is, or pre-sales solutions. So they say, in response to our content last week, which I'll link to in the show notes of this episode over at This Week in Sales if you want to catch up, they say, we appreciate that pre-sales or sales engineering or solutions consulting or a host of other names is only beginning to be widely known, and we'd love to help answer some of your questions. The common thread under every title under pre-sales acumen coupled with the common thread across every title under pre-sales is sales acumen coupled with a deep understanding technology, a challenging skill set to hire for, which that's fair to say, right? That is challenging to hire for if you want both. Pre-sales professionals command high salaries and cannot be onboarded fast enough by businesses in technology companies. In brief, pre-sales is a department within a technology company that supports sales in closing business through solution expertise. So it's not just sales upfront, which is what we assumed it was from the title. It's throughout the entire sales process. And I guess it's almost, if we want to frame this up slightly differently, it might be like a product manager equivalent of someone who has deep expertise like yourself in development of products or services that are being then, that service is perhaps being sold into an organization. So we appreciate the outreach. Have you got anything you want to add to this, Victor?
No, I thought it was very cool that First of all, they listen to our podcast, which is great. And I love the fact that they give us feedback, clarification. I like when people push back and say, I don't think you're understanding us correctly. They even offered to come on to the show and answer any questions. And they said, we don't mind the hard questions. Happy face. That's a cool attitude. That is a cool attitude. I mean, we kind of went after them a little bit. They responded with, let us clarify, and still had a cool attitude at the end. I think I like this company. I just liked it.
Well,
I think I like them.
This is clearly the future of sales and marketing, right? They get PR
Yes, it is.
in the first perspective. They get on the show the second time around. The tens of thousands of sales professionals, sales leaders are going to hear it again. So they've had double the exposure. And you just painted them in a really positive light, all from someone in their marketing team, I assume, has listened to perhaps just a segment of the show. Maybe they're not listening to the whole even thing, and have left you a nice comment, clarified a few points that we were unsure of. And I think we were quite fair in how we said we don't know how this pans out. We're not experts in this field. They've added value to our audience by doing that, and clearly, this is a much better way to use LinkedIn to drive attention and traffic than previous examples on this episode.
Hey, you know who I want to hear from? Do you know who I want to hear from?
Jeff
I want
Bezos.
to hear from Jeff Molander. I really do. I would think it would be interesting to get his perspective pre and post, shitstorm. You know what I mean? Here's what I was thinking. Here's what happened. Here's now what I think of what I just did. Jeff, would love to get your opinion. I would love to figure out, just to understand what you went through and what happened. I think it would be an interesting perspective because because I think it was probably something that, without knowing who the person is, I got to believe it wasn't malicious. He was just making a point. He just didn't realize that by not obscuring the person's name or face, people would take offense to that, especially in a, data privacy environment. You know what I mean? And bullying environment. People don't like that. But I don't think wasn't malicious, but it got out of hand.
It definitely spiraled. And we got a little bit of what I've seen numerous times when I've posted stupid things. Because we've all done it, right? If you post enough content,
We've all done
if you
it.
produce enough content, you're going to say something that you don't mean. It gets taken out of context, whatever it is. And if you're in sales and you have that many conversations, you're going to scupper up. You're going to scupper yourself at some point. We had essentially the LinkedIn police getting involved in this, which riled it up and drove more traffic to it as well, of people demanding that Jeff apologize. Now, if those individuals weren't involved, it probably would have just blown over a lot quicker and would have been a lot simpler and less perhaps stressful for the salesperson involved. The salesperson involved might not have even realized it because Jeff didn't have that big of an audience anyway. So it was the LinkedIn police that kind of amplified all this.
By the way, I'm gonna get biblical here, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Biblical, and then let he or she cast the first stone that has never deleted a post, because we've all posted something to go, ooh, let me just delete that, right? So we've all done it. So leave my man Jeff alone. Like I said, he deserves to be whipped on this one, but other than that, he's probably a good guy. Leave us your feedback, Jeff. I'm trying to defend you here, man. I'm trying to defend you.
Good. Well, we'll hopefully have a bit of a statement from Jeff next week. And with that, we'll wrap up right there, Victor. That was Victor Antonio, sales legend. You can contact Jeff. We can contact Jeff whenever you want to go on LinkedIn. You can contact Victor and myself, Will Barron, founder over at Salesman over at thisweekinsales.com. Leave us your thoughts, feedback, any industry news you want us to cover. Drop it in on the form there. And with that, we'll speak with you next week on This Week in Sales.